Welcome to another edition of Travelcaster, continuing our journey across the Baltics and Scandinavia. In the last episode, we travelled from Tallinn in Estonia by overnight ferry to the Swedish capital of Stockholm. While we've been here, we have explored its old town and paid homage to ABBA. But now it's time to move on to a new country and a new destination. This is Travelcaster, the travel pod that takes you there. Stockholm's vast central station is the starting point for our journey today, and it's not going to be over until tomorrow. Firstly, we're going to be taking a Swedish train to the Norwegian capital, Oslo, and then we're going to be taking the overnight train to the western city of Bergen. So here we are, hurtling through the Swedish countryside on our way to Oslo. Now, the scenery here has been quite spectacular. It's been snowing for much of the late afternoon, meaning that the trees, the pines and the lakes have been surrounded in what looks like a winter wonderland, even though we're recording this at the start of April. Of course, it stays colder up here for much longer, so perhaps it's not surprising. But now we've come a little bit lower down into a different part of the country. The snow has disappeared, or maybe it's just not been falling here today, and again the scenery is breathtaking. Wide open spaces, classic Scandinavian pines, and loads of lovely lakes. It's a very relaxing vista. Well, those views just got better and better as we crossed the border into Norway. The skies cleared and there was the most spectacular sunset. That is what these scenic routes are all about. Taking it in, drinking in the scenery. You can't do that on a plane. It seemed like the perfect way to end the day, but our day is not over. It is now 10 p.m. at Oslo station, and we're waiting for our connecting train, which is going to take us to Bergen in western Norway. It's a night train, it's a sleeper service. We'll get there first thing in the morning. Now, one unusual thing happened here at Oslo. When I got off the train from Stockholm, there were customs officers doing random checks at the border, and I was asked quite a few questions. Where are you going? What are you going to do when you get there? That kind of thing. It's the usual sort of thing that you might expect at an airport, not necessarily a train station. Obviously, they're here to keep people safe. There's nothing to be scared about, but it's just something to bear in mind if you are coming here. So here we are aboard the night train in our very cosy cabin. It's cosier than the one we had on the ferry in that there's no bathroom here. There is a sink, there is water, there's drinking water as well, which comes with the price just as well, I think. But basically it's 2 bunk beds. Now, when you book these trains, make sure that you book for single occupancy, because otherwise you might end up sharing with a complete stranger. That might be your kind of thing. It's not mine. Now, when you board the train, you'll collect your key from the conductor in the restaurant car. He or she will know that you're booked in, and that'll show you what your room number is on the back of the card, and then you just come down here and rest away. Now, if you don't fancy a cabin, Norwegian Railways has introduced a plus night service, a carriage which is pretty much like an airline, where you get a flatbed seat, but you will be sharing with other people in that carriage as well, so there's no privacy. So it's just coming up to 11 o'clock at night, time for what I hope will be a decent night's sleep, and we'll be waking up in Bergen at 6:30 tomorrow morning. And so it is good morning from Bergen city centre, the central station here. I have to say that the romantic image of a sleeper train did not materialise last night. That cosy cabin was extremely cosy, and this being one of the world's most scenic railways, it's also one of the most bendy, and through the night the train was creaking and croaking and basically rattling around as we went from station to station. Couldn't see a thing, of course, outside because it's dark, but all of that did not make for a good night's sleep. So at this time of the morning, there's not a lot to do in terms of exploring Bergen, but I have been sensible. I've made the arrangements to check into my hotel early, which is exactly what I'm going to do now. You know, those kids have every reason to feel happy because they're on their way to school, not just anywhere, but up here at the top of Mount Floyen. It overlooks Bergen, and you can get here on a funicular railway. It's quite easy to find in the old town, and the journey will take you about 10 minutes, a couple of intermediate stops across the way, and here you are now, 1,300 feet, around 400 metres above sea level. You can probably hear the flagpole flapping away in the background there. It's not too windy, actually. It's not too cold. I think it's about plus 2 degrees Celsius this morning, which is quite good for Bergen. And by getting that overnight train, by making an early start, by checking into the hotel and checking straight out again and getting out onto the streets, I'm able to see this viewpoint and have it all to myself. There are no other visitors here at this time. It's absolutely stunning. And below me, we can see Bergen itself. We can see its magnificent harbour and port. There looks to be a cruise ship that's arriving, or maybe it's one of those ferries from elsewhere that we've seen in the Nordic countries. The city itself looks a combination of old town and modern. And stretching beyond it are hills and mountains and fjords all around. And I feel very lucky to have got here this early because we're expecting some rain later, quite heavy according to the forecast. So, being the early bird, we've caught the viewpoint worm, as it were. And you can see pictures of this site and others from our trip at travelcaster.blog. Just search for Baltics and Scandinavia trip. Bergen has always been a place of trade. In the 13th century, merchants from northern Germany sailed into the harbour and settled down. They were known as the Hanseats and came to Bergen to trade grain for stockfish from northern Norway. All of this is contained on a useful plaque outside the Hanseatic Museum. Unfortunately, it's closed for renovations until 2026, which is ironic because these are some of the oldest buildings around. So they're going to modernise them. However, walk along the harbour and you will find real old buildings too. The Hanseatic Quarter was declared a World Heritage Site by UNESCO back in 1979. As we record today, there's quite a lot of construction work going on, doing up the pavements and the boardwalks around here. And there's still plenty of trade, just like in the old days, though today it's less about linens or fish and more about ice creams, hotels and nightclubs. Now, if you like your boat, Bergen is the place to be, because here is Norway's largest sailing ship, the Statsrad Lemkol. Built in 1914, it has a length of 98 metres and 14 sails. It looks magnificent. And you can go aboard. Well, you can book a tour. There's an archipelago tour that goes. Or there are other, what they call, sailing experiences. I think you can actually get up and hoist the mast if you so wish. All of the details are on their website. But to be honest, it's just magnificent standing here looking at her. Well, next to that old boat is an even older service. Since 1894, the Vefin Ferry has been providing trips and transportation across the harbour for citizens and visitors alike. It was Norway's first electric ferry. There are 3 ferries owned by the Bergen Coastal Heritage Centre. A trip across the harbour takes about 10 minutes and it's going to come in at 35 Norwegian kroner. That's about €2.50. It's a great way of seeing the harbour up close and personal because this tiny ferry, which only holds 12 people, crisscrosses the harbour and meanders through these enormous merchant vessels all around us. These are working ships, these are big boats. Just like almost anywhere you can go in the world, you have to question some of the local planning decisions. Take, for instance, this beautiful building behind me, the Old Town Hall. It's painted white, it has a black roof, it dates back to 1558, and behind it, a dirty grey concrete tower block that houses the municipality offices of Bergen City today. What were they thinking? This is Travelcaster, the travel pod that takes you there. And today we're at Bergen in Western Norway. This is part of our wider trip taking in Northern Europe, the Baltics and Scandinavia. For more information, head to travelcaster.blog, where you'll find all the details of where we've been. And you'll also get tips of how to get here and what to do. And don't forget, please subscribe to this podcast on whichever platform you're listening. The saying goes that you won't need to find your own way to the Fisker markets in Bergen because you can smell it a mile off. That's not actually true. This covered market is a great place to see all things seafood, and they will sell it to you at a price. A lobster here can come in at around €90. But if you fancy something a little simpler, they'll make you a sandwich, a crab sandwich or something like that, and serve it up to you with a nice cup of tea or a glass of wine. And if you don't fancy the fish, you can always just have a coffee and a cake. As with most of the places we've visited on this tour so far, Bergen has plentiful public transport. Trams and buses run right across the city. But if you're only here for a short time, a day or so, all of the sites that we've seen so far have proved incredibly walkable, even if the weather is a bit damp. However, if you do want a ticket, a 24-hour pass will come in at 110 kroner. That's about €10. Born in 1843, Edvard Grieg is one of Bergen's most famous sons. The composer was indeed born here, and there's a statue of him just near to the town hall. In fact, there's a Grieg Hall as well, where you can go and watch some fine musical performances. And a little out of the city, you can find the place where he wrote many of his songs. It's open to the public, and you can get there on a bus. Personally, of course, I just remember his music for that Andre Previn sketch in Morecambe and Wise. If you're not from the UK, you might need to look it up. Now, back in Stockholm, we were talking about the state-run monopoly on sales of strong alcohol. Here in Norway, you can buy booze in a supermarket up to a whopping strength of 4.7%. Anything above that, though, and you'll have to go to a special store where the prices are controlled by the government. Of course, you can just go to a bar. And here's one you must not miss. Apollon combines a bar with a vinyl record store, and it has almost as many beers as it does discs. Well, over 30, actually. If you're not sure, the staff will advise you on what to taste and also what to listen to. And if you time it well, you might even get a free gig. Pressures up, systems down, never felt striking as I do now. Curtain falls, the show must go on. Actually, they're not the only record store bar in this town, or indeed on this street. Nygaardsgarden is just 10 minutes walk from the Torget market and has a whole selection of diverse drinking dens. And yes, the prices here are typically Norwegian, i.e. high compared to what you're used to in the UK. But here's the thing, the quality is rather good. Loads of microbreweries have opened in recent years, including the Seven Fjell, named after the 7 mountains that surround Bergen. So in partaking of 2/3 of a pint for €8, you're also supporting local businesses. Now, a more traditional hostelry can be found in the Old Town, a collection of narrow streets and alleyways with 1,000 years of history. At De Vecker's Vinkjeller, the wine cellar, dark wooden panels and medieval caves await. The beer selection is a bit smaller here, but the story behind it is fascinating. De Vecker, the daughter of a merchant, became the mistress of Christian II of Denmark. They met here in Bergen and moved to Oslo, but she died at the age of 27, reportedly by eating poisoned cherries. De Vecker's mum, Sigbrit, then became Christian's financial advisor. However, legend has it that she was eventually burned at the stake, suspected of being a witch. It really is all going on here in Bergen. So it's been a very busy 24 hours as we've explored the city of Bergen, going up a mountain, across a harbour, seeing the history and delving into a cellar. But now it's time to leave, so that'll do it for this edition of the podcast. Don't forget, subscribe wherever you're listening, and for more tips and information of where to go, how to get here, and what to do when you arrive, check out travelcaster.blog. And join us again soon for another edition of Travelcaster, the travel pod that takes you there.